as he tries to hold on to the world #1 spot.
So we begin this news hour with the political crisis in Niger. Defence chiefs from the West African bloc, ECOWAS, are meeting for a second day in Ghana to discuss military intervention following the coup last month. The defence chiefs have already said that constitutional order will be restored in Niger by all means. They're ready to send in troops if diplomatic efforts fail. The junta is ignoring calls to reinstate the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum and have announced plans to prosecute him for treason. A new cabinet and prime minister have been appointed meanwhile. Charles Stratford joins us live now from that meeting in Accra in Ghana. And Charles, so where are we at with this meeting and what do you think might come out of it?
Well, that's right, the second and conclusive day of this two-day closed-door meeting. Certainly, if the language that was used yesterday in some of these opening statements is anything to go by, then it seems that defence ministers, defence chiefs here are determined to finalise some sort of plan for a so-called standby force. What we know is that there are 5 standby forces that come under the remit of the African Union that was set up a number of years ago. ECOWAS is one of those 5. We understand that as it stands, it's made up of 5,000 troops. At least 1,600 of those are specifically designated to looking at restoring democratic rule in countries threatened by military coups, for example. But the exact number of forces that could well be put forward, we do not know. Their modus operandi, we do not know. When, in fact, any deployment would be initiated. These are some of the questions that we hope to get some sort of answers to by the end of the day. The delegates we've seen arriving, some of the defence chiefs we've seen arriving in the last few minutes, we understand that they are now in a closed session and we expect news to come out by around about 16 GMT.
Charles, what about the African Union? Where do they stand on all this?
Well, this is really interesting because, of course, any kind of plan put forward by ECOWAS, by the defence chiefs here, in theory, has to be green-lighted by the African Union. And we already know that there is fierce opposition to any potential military intervention in Niger by a number of states, most especially states in southern Africa, states like Zimbabwe and South Africa, that, of course, have such a fierce anti-colonial stance. And any plan that has been endorsed by the former colonial power in this region, which is France, which, of course, President Macron has already stood behind any ECOWAS plan, is going to be fiercely opposed by states like that as members of the AU. Then, of course, there is opposition within ECOWAS states themselves. Again, that plan has to be green-lighted by respective parliaments of potentially contributing countries. We've seen opposition already in Nigeria to that. We've also seen opposition here in Ghana by opposition groups, because there is a risk that pushing forward any plan like that could cause political unrest in any of these contributing countries because, as I say, it is seen to have been endorsed by the former colonial power. And then, of course, even higher up than that, if you look at a wider international level, there's expected to be pushback at the UN Security Council. In theory, any kind of military intervention would have to be green-lighted in New York, and we can only expect that, for example, Russia, which is on the UN Security Council, would veto any plan. We've already heard from the Kremlin that they are fiercely against any kind of military intervention in Niger. So whatever comes out of today's meeting, it faces serious political opposition right the way across the region and, in theory, around the world.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how all this pans out. Charles, thanks very much indeed. Charles Stratford there, reporting from Accra. Well, Niger's neighbouring countries are concerned that if ECOWAS does approve military action, it could destabilise the region.